Namaste, everyone, and welcome to the Goddess of the Week. I am your goddess mentor, Anjali, and for this week's offering, I'm going to be sharing with you a little bit on the Irish goddess, the Morrigan. And as you can see, it's a weekly thing. I love being in the energy of the goddess for the week. And then I sit and I channel through makeup and channel through making headdresses and pieces of costumes to connect with the goddess, while I also share with you, as I do every week, a little bit about the essence of the goddess, her symbols, her gemstones, and how you can work with her, how you can connect with her, and basically listening to and applying the wisdom of the goddess of the week into whatever it is that you're currently experiencing. And now, interestingly, the Irish goddess of the week, who is responsible, she's known as the goddess of fate, the goddess of death, life and rebirth, which is the cycle of life, and she's also the goddess of war, right? So she has a very dark aspect to her. And this week, while channeling her, she was basically saying, Anjali, the funny thing about it, and especially when I look personally, observe into the spiritual community, that, we have this sense of we need to be good and everything needs to be in love and light and everything needs to be in love and light and positive. And there seems to be this sort of general consensus that I see with a lot of us being scared of the darkness and running away from our darkness and running away from our shadow and not really facing those fears, which is Morgen, which is what she's about. It's like going into battle, right? Life is a battlefield. Everything is not normally love and light. You have people, let's say, that can be really kind to you and really nice to you, and then the tables turn, or I would like to say, eventually, as you start getting to know them, and everybody does, both men and women, we do have a light side and a shadow side, and then we start seeing the shadow aspects that come up, which is really healthy though, but it starts becoming an issue when the shadow aspects within ourselves and within others out in the world starts becoming toxic. It's sort of out of balance, right? So the Morgen normally comes to us, and this week is really powerful because she normally comes to us, both men and women who have either been abused in the past or have suffered abuse or is currently going through some sort of abuse. And Namaste, Bridget, nice to see you here. I'm so happy I get to do these live videos, right? And some of us, maybe we're not in that abusive situation anymore, but there's the after effect of it where we don't really know how to deal with it. And if we don't really know how to deal with it, those are the things that cause depression. We start shutting down, we stop living life. And we're just scared. We're scared to go back out into the world, scared to go back out into the battlefield, right? Love your look. Thank you. I've really embodied the Morgen. And so the Morgen, I love the fact, in honor of her, I say the Morgen and not Morgan, just to give her that aspect, because her name meaning in Gaelic, Mor, which means great, and Rigan, which means queen, so she's the great queen. And she comes into our lives, especially people that have suffered from abuse. And if a lot of you know my background, I've suffered sexual abuse as a child and also as a teenager. And Morgen actually was showing to me, and this is what she represents: the ability to transform yourself from the victim, from the person of where things are being done to you, and taking your power and taking your sovereignty and taking back fate and putting fate into your own hands instead of giving it over to someone else and thinking something out there or someone out there is the answer. And if you were to just get that thing out there or that person or that job or that relationship or whatever it is, everything's going to be better. And that's absolutely not the way it works. So the Morrigan comes in to offer protection, to help us to go internally, because everything that is reflected outward has some sort of internal workings. And so for me, specifically with the Morgen, and the Morgen energy would have been me as a child being sexually abused and molested by a family member, and then me into my teens where I was actually raped by my dance teacher, and then holding on to that pain, holding on to that betrayal, holding on to the darkness and the poison inside. And somehow in my early 20s, as I was reflecting on this for the last few days, at 21, I actually transformed myself into a dominatrix. So even though at that point it wasn't the healthiest thing to be in, because I took myself from the role of being abused into the role of role-playing the abuser, because in the fetish world and in the BDSM community, there is something that's called consensual agreement. So you have to consent with each other. This is the layout, this is what we're going to be doing, and this is what we're going to be role-playing. So even though it was consensual, at some point my consciousness kicked in, because if any of you have probably seen 50 Shades of Grey, which by the way has nothing to do with real-time BDSM, it's a lot more painful, let me tell you. And the thing about it, and I find it really interesting, is that was the way I could have best at 21 years old, with what I knew and how I perceived the world, and with the thinking and the skills and the abilities that I had then, I would say my genius in me transformed me into that dominatrix, to be able to protect myself so I would no longer be abused, even though I was role-playing the abuser role with others who were into the power play of the dominant and the submissive. And so the beautiful thing about that is, if we were to take that entire fetish world and kind of blast it out into the actual world, which we do have, and that's basically where abuse comes in, right? Abuse is basically a fight for power. It's when two people aren't connected to source and they start looking at each other and feeding off of each other for energy and for whatever needs that they need. It can be an emotional thing, psychological thing, it can be a mental thing, sexual thing, a financial thing, whatever that reason is. So for me, the Morgen, I think her biggest message this week for everyone is to kind of like step back, and what I like to call a dark day. And a dark day is when you're you have to honor it, you know, when you're just in this feeling of, maybe I feel lazy, or I don't feel like doing anything today, or I'm not just up and peppy. And for some reason, and she was sort of giggling, showing this to me, that, you know, humanity sometimes, our thinking can be a little bit messed up, in the sense that, you know, we want to have things a certain way, like we're so scared of the dark. But she's basically saying, hey, the sun is not up 24/7, 365, right? We have the daytime, we have the sunlight, and then we come into the night, and we have the gifts and the blessings of the night, if we're actually going to honor the cycle. And this is the cycle as well, of like life and death and rebirth. And so nothing is good and nothing is bad, and this is what the goddess really wanted me to share with everyone. It's really our perception of it, because everything that we do, and everybody that we meet, even if they play a role of, you know, being the ally, and if they play a role of being the dark person, or, you know, the abuser or whatever, it's just all really role playing from like the divine perspective of it. Lionsgate portal is just so huge energy right now, so it's easier to embody a change of energy. Namaste, Julie, I just saw you on here. Thank you for joining in. And yes, that is true, right? And for me, specifically when I channeled into the Morgen, as she was saying, we need to start goddesses, and as I said, both masculine and feminine, both men and women, we all have the goddess energy within us, even if we want to believe that we don't, or we choose for whatever reason to not acknowledge it. And mostly it's because of the patriarchal systems, as I keep repeating in my videos, that's really conditioned us and programmed us to think in a certain way, where we're now sort of breaking out of that traditional suppressed patriarchal energy, and we're beginning to honor the cycles of our lives. As I go back to the dark days, right? The dark days where you just want to be lazy and not really do anything, and just kind of be in your cloak of invisibility, and that's okay too, right? Especially if you have been abused, or if you are currently in an abusive relationship. And the thing is, and I really want to put that out, if you are in a relationship, and it doesn't matter if it's a romantic relationship, platonic relationship, business associate, a student or a teacher, or you have a healer, or whatever it is you're doing that relationship is, it's really, really, really important for you guys to understand that everything is not what it seems. And this is one of Morrigan's, this is one of her other gifts. This is one of her powers. When I say gifts, it's her powers. And her power is the power of prophecy. It's the power of intuition, being connected to her third eye and seeing life as it really is. Because the truth is, in the human world, or on planet Earth, as we see things with our physical eyes, just what we see in front of us, it cannot be what it seems. So everything is not what it seems. If people were to say things to you, it doesn't necessarily mean that's what it is. And that's actually a huge thing that I've been going through personally, I would say for about the last 4 or 5 months or so, where I've had some very distinguished people that I really looked up to and really trusted, and you know, when people say things like, I have integrity, you want to believe that, or you believe that, right? Until they show you different, and then they show you the dark side, and what do you do with it? And so you have two options really. What do you do with it? You can sit back, you can continue to get beaten up. It's the same thing in a battle, right? If you go into a battle as a victim, chances are you're going to get slain. If you go into battle knowing that you're a warrior, chances are your spirit and your energy and your vitality and sustenance for wanting to live and wanting to be your life to be in the way that you know that it should be, you're going to have that chance to live and push through and make something better of yourself. Namaste, Joy. I'm just going to scroll down here. I agree, going through the process of disengaging right now from idols and all things that I don't feel is right for me. Exactly, Bridget, and thank you for chipping in on that. And so I'm going to be a little bit open, and the cool thing about my Goddess of the Week this week is that I am not only going to be doing this live video here on Facebook, I am now going to start posting these videos to my YouTube channel, so all my YouTube followers can get this information as well, to be able to transform. And that's the key, right? Is like, we want to continuously keep transforming and evolving. And I have this particular saying, if you're not evolving, you're dissolving. And that's pretty much the cycle of life, right? Birth, death, and rebirth. And so the cool thing is, while we're in this human experience, we've gone through so many cycles of who we thought we were, then what life gave us, then going through the actual battle and coming out of that battle victorious every single time. Sometimes we get defeated, but sometimes we regroup and we come stronger. And it's basically going to be continuous until the day we decide to leave this body and go back into spirit, or what I like to call home, right? So I've got my notes here as usual every week, and one of the things is it's really cool because last week's goddess of the week was the goddess Oshun, and Oshun was the goddess of fresh waters. And the cool thing about the Morgen is she's actually also an overseer of the fresh waters, and has actually said that warriors back in the days in Ireland, when there was a lot of, think of the culture now. The culture now, we've got internet, we've got condos, airplanes, you know, all these cool things going on. And we want to go back into like the 1500s or even to the medieval ages and stuff in Ireland. And everything was a war. I mean, villagers had to fight to protect their food. They had to fight to protect their farm animals. The wars could have been bigger, where kingdoms were fighting to protect from being invaded by other kingdoms and stuff like that. And this is where the Morgen comes in and where she's so important. And the interesting thing is her two most profound symbols. If you want to know the Morgen is with you, you're going to start seeing crows all around you, and you're going to start seeing ravens all around you. Those are her birds. Those are her dominant symbols of when you're meeting with the Morgen. And the thing is, the Morgen was actually showing to me, you know, she says, normally this is human thinking, right? We love the pretty birds. We love the cute little white birds and the cute little colored birds and stuff. Nobody really wants to say, oh wow, look at that crow, it's so beautiful, or that raven, it's so beautiful, or even a vulture. Think about a vulture eating dead carcasses, which is what all three birds do, the crow, the raven, and the vulture. But the Morgen says the goddess does not judge. Every person, every animal, every plant, everything on this planet was placed here with a purpose. Not just humans or selected humans, down to every animal, every mineral, every rock, every bird. And so if we were to look at the cycle of what the Morgen wants us to see, which is the cycle of life, death, and rebirth, in the death process, when, let's say in the battlefields, after all these soldiers were slain and all these warriors were slain and there was just a whole bunch of carcasses on the field, imagine if the crows weren't there and the vultures weren't there and the ravens weren't there. It would be a mess, right? So the cool thing, and the crow and the raven specifically to the Morgen, actually talks about the magic of transformation, where you have a dead carcass or you have a dead body, and they pick at that and they eat at it, and it nourishes them. And as it nourishes them, they actually excrete that back into the earth, into the ground, which causes for fertilizer for new things to grow. So that's a huge one. Namaste, namaste, Helena. Thank you for coming in. And that's a huge one, right? Where we need to stop judging and start looking at things for, you know, the cycle that it offers us. So I was personally trapped into the victim for a little bit, as I had said in one of my earlier videos, where this was done to me and I was abused. And I knew it was abuse just because, again, that's the cycle where life would keep bringing up those situations. So if you've been abused in the past, and chances are you haven't fully healed that, and you haven't really accepted the Morgen energy inside of you, which is that energy to like own your power and not give it away, and to take fate into your own hands and not believe somebody who is more successful than you or older than you or perceive themselves to be wiser than you or better than you for some reason holds the key or holds the answer. It's actually everything that you need is within, and that's what the goddess teachings are about, and the goddess consciousness that is coming through, as I said, myself and a lot of goddess teachers that are upcoming as well, to help to bring awareness and consciousness to the mass consciousness, or I should say the consciousness of humanity, right? Because my philosophy, as I said, is the more you know, the more you grow. So the more we are aware of things. So for example, this is a cool, the Morgen in me coming out, where I had attended this school, Looking back now, because it's been over a year, looking back now, my first red flag was that the school was not an accredited school, because we tend to sometimes make choices based on emotional, emotional responses more than actually listening to our intuition. Sometimes people can come up with a good script or a good way of advertising. They know there's tons and tons of money that's spent on this, with getting researchers and marketers and advertisers to come in and to understand how people tick and how you tick and what your emotional strings are, to kind of pull on that and leverage on it, right? And then you have the authentic people that really do want to share this information, and they really do want to make it available. And they also know their value, and they also know their worth, and what I like to call the fear exchange, right? It's not just a one-sided thing or a lopsided thing where it's all about the other person, but the two people are willing to make a truce. We're no longer going to kill each other on the battlefield. That is so medieval. We're actually moving and evolving our consciousness as humanity into learning how to tune in and tap into our intuition and to create peaceful resolve and creative solutions, not just for ourselves, but for each other. Because as I said, the patriarchal energy, the Morrigan, comes in when we're normally abused through the patriarchal system, which is sort of like the dominant and the submissive. I'm the dominant, I'm important, I'm on top, you're on the bottom, you are not allowed to think for yourself, you are not allowed to feel for yourself, you are not allowed to see for yourself, only do as you're told. And that is most of us, to be honest with you. That's most of us, how we live. We live in that fear of, hey, well, if I don't conform, maybe I'm not going to be accepted, or people are going to think I'm weird or strange. Like, go back to the 1500s per se. Let's say when the patriarchal came into power and the church came into power, all of a sudden there were all these rules, right, of what it is to be a good Christian, and what it is you need to follow, and if you don't follow certain things or dogmas that was inflicted upon you and oppressed onto you, that you were a child of the devil. I would be considered a child of the devil right now because I listen to my intuition, I worship Mother Earth, I understand the elements, I understand the energy, and I understand that there is universal laws, which are the highest laws that actually create the infinite beauty that we're able to enjoy for lifetimes, not even just this lifetime, versus a set of rules put up by someone that's here in this life that wants you to follow it. Because if you were to follow it, it makes them feel good about themselves. So you got to really look out for that, because a lot of us are light workers, right? And a lot of us light workers tend to fall into the rescue pit, where we want to rescue people and help people, and we get all entangled into we give our power away, which is really what the Morrigan is here to say. It's time to take your power back. It's time for you to put fate into your own hands, to trust your intuition, trust your God-given telephone from yourself to the divine, to the universe, and to be able to call in and ask for help instead of looking for that and searching for that on the outside. Haha, that's not my problem. I don't conform. Yes, Joy, we know you don't conform. Hello, Joy, one of our goddess sisters over at the Wisdom of Shakti Oracle group, which is my goddess group. So if you are all resonating with this, especially, the new people that are in, and you want to come into the group, I highly encourage you to, because I totally get into details by giving you the meanings of symbols and gemstones based on the goddess of the week, and how they're going to resonate with you and sort of help you to weave that into your week in order to completely empower you. So the Morgen, just pulling up my notes here, she presides over certain attributes, and these are courage, death, enchantment, magic, my favorite thing, and that's magic with a K, by the way. The moon, destruction, the night, psychic abilities, sexuality, prophecy, revenge, which is, we're going to put a circle on that one because that doesn't work at all, and transformation. So the cool thing here is that this is time for us this week where we got to look at everything we've gone through and we got to say, I am no longer a victim anymore. I may have had stuff in the past that I needed to cycle out of with regards to abuse. And I thank and I forgive and I thank everyone who's played an integral part for me to take my power back. And life is always going to bring this to you through different teachers and different people and different acquaintances and friends and relationships. Specifically in relationships, that's where the most abuse happens, right? Because it tends to be the people we love the most, we give our power to the most. And that's really huge. You can love someone, but you can help, you can give of yourself. You do not need to give up yourself to another person. And the interesting thing is, you're going to notice as you take your power back, you're going to really notice who really loves you and who really cares for you and who really wants to be there for you. Because there's a lot of people out there, when you take your power back, and your power too being a huge one is being your voice, and you start thinking freely and you start speaking freely, it's going to send them crazy. It's going to send them crazy because they're no longer able to clamp down on you. They're no longer able to control you. And guess what? That's not your problem. That's their problem, okay? So huge, huge, huge one this week. And the cool thing about the Morrigan with the crows and the ravens is that the raven actually represents synchronicity. So I had this cool synchronicity this week, and I know a lot of my girlfriends, my goddess girlfriends that are viewing right now, actually witnessed that with me, where for many, many months I was actually carrying a huge burden of blame and guilt, just for simply following my intuition and knowing that there was a situation that I was in that was just absolutely wrong and completely off from what I was being told and what I was being shown, right? And so I did follow my intuition, and I always have followed my intuition. And as I like to share, I really believe that the universe, or I should say, I should really believe that I am alive, and the universe obviously protected me through my life cycle of going through some really dark shit. I mean, we're talking about being a dominatrix and being into drugs and, you know, chains and whips, and as Rihanna says, right, sticks and stones may break my bones, but whips and chains, whatever that lyric is with Rihanna. And I completely understand that, right? We all go through that. You don't have to be a dominatrix, or you don't have to be a person in the fetish lifestyle to experience that sort of like power play and power struggle and abuse. As I said, it's there in just regular relationships with, you know, when you feel neglected, they're neglecting you. When you feel abandoned, they're abandoning you. When you feel betrayed, you are being betrayed. These are the things the Morrigan wants us to own our feelings, to own our intuition, to use the power of our third eye, our psychic sight. That is our power as spiritual beings, to be able to perceive the truth and to perceive the illusion, so to speak, right? So going through here, another symbol of the Morrigan is candles. And this comes with magic with a K. And I strongly believe in candle magic. I've done it so many times. Actually, a simple thing of you lighting a white candle in your living room, maybe just to change the ambiance. And you see that when you light candles in your living room, the energy changes, the ambiance changes, right? That's magic right there. That's invoking spirit. That's invoking protection. It's invoking peace with a white candle. And for the Morgen, her candles are white, red, and black, which I find to be so interesting for two reasons. One, I'm originally from Trinidad and Tobago, and our national flag, the colors are red, white, and black. And two, back in my dominatrix days as a dominatrix, you would never see me wearing color. I would always be wearing black corsets, black fishnet stockings, black boots, knee-high boots, black latex skirts, and my hair would be black, and I would have red nails, and I would have red lips, and that was me 24/7, by the way, no color at all. So the cool thing is the white candle actually symbolizes rebirth, right? The white candle is for protection. It's if you want to do something new or you want to birth something new, you light a white candle and you pray with that. The red candle symbolizes passion, and it symbolizes deep love. So if you would notice, a lot of people, if say you're in a relationship and the love life, you want to amplify your love life, or you want to just feel that, you know, chemistry and feel that deeper sense of love that you both have within you, and you want to bring that out, red candles are really cool for that. And black candles, and this is the kind of like cultural messed up thing from the patriarchal system. Oh my God, black candles, it's witchcraft, it's the devil, it's the devil. Seriously, you know, black is just like white and red and green and blue. It's you know, a color of a candle should not dictate your perception on fear. And that's what the Morrigan is about. It's about, she's fearless. I mean, she walks in the battlefield while battle is going on, knowing that she's untouched, because she is not sucked into mortality. She's immortal. We're immortal. We're immortal beings in this temporary shell that we call a human body, right? And anyways, so the black candle actually is for protection as well, but it's also for releasing negativity. So say, for example, with me, if I was going through, or I should say I have gone through this situation, personally, I've used more white candles, but now that I'm actually doing this is really cool. And this is why I love channeling information. We have the power to put something to rest. We have the power to kill it. And when I mean by killing, I'm talking about energies, right? So for example, you're battling with someone energy wise, and there's a bunch of negativity around you, or there's a bunch of, they're just projecting that anger and hurt and rage and whatever they're going on. And there's just what is known as a psychic attack, right? And if you believe you've been psychically attacked, by someone, the easiest thing for you to do, if you just completely want to wash your hands and cut it, is to light a black candle, to say your prayer, ask for protection, and ask for it to be dispelled and to be removed. So that's just a little tip with the candle magic that we're talking about the Morrigan, and the Morrigan being presiding over magic, which is one of the things that she oversees. Another thing that came through that Morrigan wanted to share is that she would love for everyone to own your intuition, right? The Morrigan, she works through her intuition. She has a bullshit meter, so people can be talking to you. Don't be that gullible to believe everything that someone says. I've made that mistake of taking someone's words for gospel, and then as things unfold, I was completely devastated because it wasn't as it seems. It was actually nothing like it seemed at all. So one of the cool things for me, I always like to say, is that my intuition is actually really razor sharp, only because of my past, only because of instances each and every day in my life where I had to depend on my intuition if I was going to die or if I was going to live. And that's the extremities of the life that I was living before. But it doesn't, you don't have, as I said, you don't have to go through these really crazy dark stuff in order to develop your intuition. And so the Morgen, along with the Morrigan's messages this week, I wanted to share just a simple thing, and we can, it's along the lines of the candle magic, really, but it's taking a purple candle, because the purple would represent your spiritual or your third eye, your spiritual seeing eye, or you can do it with a white candle. And if you were to take some time and sit down and light this candle in front of you in a really dark room, and just for a few seconds, just gaze into the candle, look at the wick, look at the flame, the shape of the flame, the color of the fire and such, and just really focus on that with your eyes. And then after about 20-30 seconds, you want to close your eyes and you want to recreate the fire. You want to recreate the flame. You want to see the wick. You want to see the shape of the fire, of the flame. And so you open your eyes again, and then you look into the fire, you look into the flame. And so you repeat this probably about 2 or 3 times if you want to do it a few times a week. And it really helps to open up your third eye. Another thing that came through was using just a simple piece of clear quartz crystal. And this one I actually learned while I was doing my angel therapy training in Hawaii with Doreen Virtues and learning about the angels. And this really helps to open up your psychic ability. And it's basically taking actually 2 pieces of clear quartz crystals. If you have the ones with like a pointed tip, and you were to place one in front of your third eye, and you place one to the back in the middle of your head, and just sort of close your eyes and visualize just the energy of the crystals just sort of running through your mind and running through your pineal gland and connecting to the crystal in the back, and just kind of stimulating those areas. That also actually helps with opening up your intuition. Remember, the new moon is coming, almost black tonight, endings and beginnings. Thank you, Joy. Exactly, right? So the cool thing is, the Morgen also said, if we want to, when we look at her as presiding over the moon, right? So it's nighttime, it's dark outside. Most of us are scared of whatever things we have in our minds about what's associated with the darkness. But the goddess, the awakened woman, the warrior, the awakened man, in the awakened goddess, inside of the awakened man and the awakened woman, understands the power of the moon. So the moon now, let's look at, it's night, it's dark, you're going through your life, you're kind of lost, you're kind of confused, you're not too sure, you're not happy in this relationship, or you're not happy in this job, or you're not happy with a certain choice that you made, and you're in darkness about it. So she wanted me to share, the moon is like your intuition, right? And the rays of the moonlight is actually your intuition guiding you. So now think about seeing the moon and the moon rays coming down. Things are actually lit up. So if you were to go walk through or go through the moonlight, you can actually find yourself from point A, where you are in the darkness, to point B, where you're going, right? Whereas some of us wouldn't even notice, even though the moon's there and the moonlight's there and it's showing the way, we don't even notice that. We're just running around freaking crazy in the dark, screaming about why it's not daylight yet, right? So the cycles of life, and that's what it's really about. The Morrigan comes to us when we're going through like a dark night of the soul, and she helps us to connect with our intuition, which lights up the path for us to walk out of that darkness, to take our power from that and to go into the new life, to go into the next life. And that's what we call wisdom, right? So just checking my notes to make sure that I've covered everything. And yeah, and so I also have written here, the Morrigan teaches us how to find our own strength. And in the meaning of, think about a warrior in battle. A warrior in battle, their demeanor, there's a lot of anger and a lot of adrenaline. And so the Morrigan actually pushes us to go through situations where we're just, it's getting harder and harder and harder and harder because we're not taking our power back. So the more we don't take our power back, it's the more painful it gets, right? Until we get to a point that we're driven to say no more. That's it. And that's the Morrigan in me, that's the Morrigan in you, that's the Morrigan in all of us, right? And gemstones for the Morrigan. If you would love to work with the Morrigan, I normally do little gemstone grids. These would be the gemstones to use for her. I have here black obsidian, snowflake obsidian, bloodstone, amethyst, and the clear quartz. I've already explained the clear quartz exercise in order to open up your third eye ability. And another thing here is with sexuality. That's like a huge one. Where we are right now, 2018, women are being liberated, okay? The years for sexuality being of the devil or being evil or being shameful or any of these things needs to be over. Namaste, Jane. Okay, I'm just going to read here. She's been with me many times at my darkest times, and that is when the ravens and the crows show up in person for me. The magic of the raven is real and not scary at all. No fears. Thank you so much, Joy. And that is true, right? I mean, I actually remembered I went to earlier this year, I took a trip to Ireland for family vacation. And it was my first time actually touching the physical soil of Ireland, even though as a Caribbean Indian woman, or I should say girl grown up now into a woman, I've always been fascinated with the Celts and the Celtic culture and the Irish mythology, specifically the Druids and witchcraft. And so for me, it was really cool because as I landed into the airport in Ireland, we actually had a rental there. And so it was really early in the morning. I believe it was like 6. It was like a little to 6 in the morning. And we had a 2.5 hour drive to where we were going to. And I remember us, I would say about a little after 7, we decided to stop off at a McDonald's halfway through to where we were going. And I remember that was pretty much the only thing that was open. So we went to the drive-thru and ordered. And for some reason, I had my fiance park the car in the parking lot. And I wasn't too sure why, because we were just gonna, drive and keep driving and eating and driving to get where we were going to. And I thought it was really important, like, no, let's just stop, let's just take a break. And as soon as I got out of the car, out of the parking lot, this is just me, my official feet stepping into the grounds of Sacred Ireland, I had a murder of crows that came to me, and they were just caw, they're cawing everywhere. And so now, because they actually say in the Irish mythology that the Morrigan, when you see the crows and you see the ravens, it's her spirit greeting you. It's her spirit knowing that you're there, and she knows that you're there. So for me, I'm really grateful for that experience, and I love sharing these experiences. And it just makes perfect sense to me why that would be, just given my past with abuse and giving my past with being in darkness and trying to pull myself out of that darkness and leading myself out of that darkness. And so that was the beautiful quote, as I said, was given to me by the Morrigan, where she says, your intuition is the light, is the moonlight that guides you through darkness into the light. they were saying she's here, she's here. They know she had a real deal. She was the real deal. Thank you, Joy. You're so awesome. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for all the goddess sisters that I do have in my life that do understand this talk. And the way I speak, I like to say, I call it goddess language. And the goddess language is basically speaking in symbols. It's being able to understand the symbols of life that's presented in nature, right? And this is how our ancestors lived, and this is the secrets that our ancestors knew. And I really, really feel a lot of us are coming back to the goddess, and we're coming back to the goddess culture, because that is reality, right? The illusion. And this is really interesting, right? Man would conquer the land, and then they would build buildings, and they would build apartments, and they would build condos, and they would build shopping malls, and they build this beautiful little trap, and then they put a beautiful little system implemented into it, and we're all into the system, and we're all just spinning into that system. Most of us actually thinking the artificial or the man-made lifestyle is reality, and then simple things like the ocean and the trees and the birds and the crystals and things that we as light workers understand and connect to, because that's where the life force energy is. That's where our source of vitality truly is. It's not in a light bulb, it's in the sun, right? It's not in a building, it's in a tree. The tree has life where the building doesn't. Just little things like that. We need to start, the light bulbs popping up in our head. So I really hope that you all got a lot out of this. This was a really good week for me. As I said, I've been literally like a crow and a raven looking at all the dead carcasses from the battles that I've recently had, and just picking on them and just transforming them now, nourishing myself, taking my power back, nourishing myself, and just so excited to see what is the new chapter and the new journey and the new adventure, and of course the new goddess of the week. So if, as I said, this week, for the rest of the week, if you're having what I call a dark day, and a dark day is just feeling down, feeling gloomy, feeling a little bit lazy, not wanting to do anything, sort of things popping up and reminiscing, it's really because the Morrigan energy wants us to just kill some things now. It no longer needs to be alive in our life, and that's just the natural cycle of life. We need to now, like the crows and like the ravens, pick on all these carcasses of all these things that we've gone through and nourish ourselves with it, gain the wisdom from it, and then now put back ourselves into the world, into the planet, and understand it's not doomsday if you run into something that's dark, right? Because that's the truth, as Morrigan's saying, like we all have a light aspect to us, and we all have a shadow, right? This has been great. I love the energy. Thank you, Bridget. Yeah, no, it's really real, because the thing is, like, what I've understood, and a lot of people need to understand, sexuality and spirituality are the most two powerful energies that swirl through our planet. And what are the odds, I say to myself, that my soul has put me through so many sexual austerities, and has, with my willingness and openness to learn and to heal, my soul's worked with me and guided me towards all the information and all the education that I needed in order to overcome that in the sexual side of it. So now I have that wisdom to share, and it's so cool. After I was done learning the lessons within the whole sexuality spectrum, which goes back, as I said, to being molested, being raped, getting into sex trafficking, becoming a dominatrix, call girl, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And we're talking like 10 years ago. This was my life 10 years ago. And now, literally, from 2008, leaving that actually it was 2007, but I like to say 2008 because I did have some relapses, and that's just normal. If anybody right now that's struggling with any sort of abuse and drug abuse, don't beat up yourself. Don't think you're a loser. Don't think you're a victim, you know. And as I like to say, the more we repeat things, the more it's mastery out of it. And so I had a few relapses. So I like to say 2008 was when I completely left that entire drug world. And now, literally 2018, I've just been solely into the entire spiritual community. And there's this joke that I have when people say, well, you know, how did you quit drugs? And my drug of choice at that time was crystal meth. And the slang for crystal meth was crystal, right? And so my joke is, oh, I gave up crystal meth for crystal healing. Time to pick the bones clean and get on with it. We transform every day. Time to take a look at your past tendencies and revisit the strength of your intuition. Angeli is transformation poster child when it comes to reinventing. Thank you. Yeah, and that's basically what it is, right? And like I like to say, now where I am 10 years later looking back, not a lot of people in the lifestyle that I was leading are alive today. I mean, I have friends that are still connected to other friends in that lifestyle, and we hear about, oh, this person died from an overdose and that person died from an overdose. And yeah, given the lifestyle that they were leading, majority of people who were drug addicts or, you know, who are really grotesquely abused, like they commit suicide, they do overdoses, you know, all sorts of crazy things. So that's why I like to say I'm really fortunate and grateful for my intuition, for the moonlight that was in my darkest days, which was the Morgen, to fight and to battle. And I wouldn't be here if I didn't fight. So as I said, in the spiritual community, this thing where it's like, you know, love and light and be kind and no kindness. And I'm sorry, if you're going to be all love and light and you're not going to learn how to protect yourself and you're not going to learn how to tune into your intuition and to know when someone's feeding you bullshit, to understand the difference when something is real and something is an illusion, you're just going to be gobbled up. You're going to be gobbled up by the world. Chances are you're going to be taken for a ride, or, you know, and they manifest in different ways. They manifest in fears. They manifest in, you know, financial abuse. And this is the thing, actually, before I close up tonight, that Morrigan really wanted me to bring through, as she's the protectress and she presides over people that are struggling with past abuse or current abuse or looking to completely heal that abuse cycle. Is abuse is just not physical, which I've gone through, but it's also emotional, it's psychological, it's spiritual, you know, and it's financial, right? And so I know this is really hard to believe, but the cycle, and I've learned this from Louise Hay, normally abuse victims, they continue the pattern. They become the abuser, most of them. And some of them who don't become the abuser, they actually continue to just be the victim and to continue to just be the victim because that's the role that they play, right? So again, the goddess does not judge. She understands we're all her children and we're all learning how to play with each other. And so we role play, but we don't need to do the toxic abuse thing anymore. That needs to completely go. So I know everyone that's watching this and everyone that is going to watch this, you're probably going to be going through something like that right now, or cleaning up something like that right now and looking to just completely eliminate that cycle. And what is the opposite of abuse? The opposite of abuse is cherish, appreciation, adoration, respect. Respect is a big one. So if you don't feel, and for me now where I am, If I don't feel respected, I know I'm being disrespected. And if I'm showing respect and I'm being disrespected, that means that I'm being abused. It's simple as that. Or it can be completely extreme to being abused by being beaten to a pulp. You know, some of us, my dad has this saying, and he's always said, if you don't listen, you feel, right? And so some of us, we get the first red flag and we don't listen. So then it goes into something else and we don't listen, and it goes into something else and we don't listen. And then it can be something really extreme as having to be physically knocked in the head to understand, hey, this is not right. This is not the way that I need to be treated. Janet, awesome. Sorry, ladies, I'm just on the video here and it's hard for me to scroll down. And this is why I love the Facebook chat and doing this live, just because I can communicate. And yeah, and so as I'm closing up, I hope you guys, a lot of this information really resonates. Okay, I'm getting distracted because I have a little bit of a chat going on, and that's okay. I just hope all of this really resonates, because the biggest gift that the Morrigan brought me this week was closure and synchronicity of information that gave me closure, that just made me feel like I lost 90 pounds. And you don't really understand the kind of heaviness you're holding on to until it's actually released from the body and it's released from your energy. And again, always trust your intuition. Work on sharpening your intuition. Listen to your intuition, even over and above anyone else, even me or anything in the outside. There are certain things that are going to resonate that is for you, and there are certain things that aren't going to resonate, and so you don't have to eat all of it. You just basically take what you're going to be able to utilize and integrate into your own life, and to make yourself more empowered, to uplift yourself. Give yourself that courage and strength and self-love and self-confidence that you need to go out there and just be yourself. And always remember, to all my goddess sisters and all my goddess brothers, that a goddess owns both her lightness and her light, and both her dark, or lightness and dark. And it's okay. And it's completely okay, right? So on that note, I hope you guys had fun. If for my YouTube followers, I'm really excited. Just kind of bear with me while I figure out how to do this. And if you are interested actually to come on to my Facebook Live, you can get me here on my Facebook page, which is Goddess Mentor Angeli, at 9:30 p.m. EST on every Wednesday. So thank you everyone for joining in. I hope you really loved the information that came through with the Morrigan. It was really big, it was really bold, really powerful. And yes, for me to finish my story, she's saying, Angeli, that story. And so yes, my intuition many months ago had me walk away from a situation. And this week I was actually led by a few friends and a few acquaintances and just information coming in. And I was able to get hold of information that actually confirmed, and it was just silly, and I started laughing to understand a simple situation of it. I was not at fault to trust my intuition, that I trusted my intuition. And you know, it may be weeks later, it may be months later, it may be days later, but you will get that information to come in, and you will get that information to confirm that this is the message of the Morgen, which is two things: to never give your power away, always hold yourself with your own sense of self, know your thinking, know your hearth ethics, never compromise that for anybody at any given time. And number two, always trust your intuition and trust in time, in divine timing, that the information will come to supplement, support, and confirm your intuition. That you never, ever have to doubt yourself again, and go into places where there's hurt and pain. And the truth is, people that hurt us are only hurting inside. People that are healed, they can love you and they can hold you unconditionally and they can uplift you and support you, but there's always a shadow side as well. And if the shadow side, there's a lot of pain and a lot of hurt that is not being looked at and it's not being addressed, that is just going to creep up like poison into your life, and it's just going to spread everywhere, and you're going to just be a victim of that. And again, that has to go with relationships, friendships, acquaintances, anything like that. So thank you everyone for joining in. Namaste and have a beautiful night. Bye. And I'm trying to figure out how to take this off.